Welcome to Frances Reads the Bible. Today I'm moving on to Genesis 47. You heard me right. And you're wondering, Francis, what happened to 46? Well, I read that yesterday at home. I didn't record yesterday. I'm believing you read yours too. So today I read 47, which is why I'm doing the video for 47. So Genesis 46 in summary was Jacob and his whole family moved from Canaan to the land of Egypt, and Joseph settled them in the land of Goshen, in the region of Goshen. And in total were 66 males, and then Joseph and his sons made them 70. So 70 males in total. That's Jacob, his sons, his grandsons. This is not counting, excluding the females, the wives, daughters, granddaughters. There weren't much then. So now Joseph took five of his brothers and went to the king. He couldn't take everybody to be so rowdy to come before a king with 11 other people. So my father and my brothers have come from Canaan with their flocks, their herds, and all that they own. They are now in the region of Goshen. He there presented his brothers to the king. The king said, "What is your occupation?" "We're shepherds, sir, just as our ancestors were," they answered. "We have come to live in this country because in the land of Canaan the famine is so severe that there is no pasture for our flocks. Please give us permission to live in the region of Goshen." The king said to Joseph, "Now that your father and your brothers have arrived, and being shepherds, what we're going to discover later, I think is where or how the slavery started for the children of Israel. You understand what I mean later? Because they are shepherds by profession. They did exactly what Joseph told them to do and say. So the land of Egypt is theirs, says the king, or said the king. Let them settle in the region of Goshen, the best part of the land. And if there are any capable men among them, put them in charge of my own livestock. Like I said, I think this is where it started. Taking care of the king's livestock. You get what I mean later when we get to the end of the chapter. So then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to the king. And Jacob gave the king his blessing, and the king asked him, "How old are you?" And Jacob answered, "My life of wandering has lasted 130 years. Those years have been few and difficult, unlike the long years of my ancestors in their wanderings." Jacob gave the king a farewell blessing and he left. So now Jacob is 130. Then Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt, giving them property in the best of the land near the city of Ramses, as the king had commanded. Joseph provided food for his father, his brothers, and all the rest of his father's family, including the very youngest. In the previous chapter 46, Joseph had told his brothers to mention to the king that they were shepherds because the Egyptians did not like livestock. To them, it was dirty. So, if they knew the people of Israel or Jacob's people were shepherds, they could easily take the land of Goshen and no Egyptian would, bother coming to that area. It could be theirs or belong to them. So, I think this is where the slavery started because Egyptians felt shepherds were below them or beneath them, taking care of livestock and all that. So they got people to do it for them. They have servants and whatnot taking care of it. And then people of Israel, since they were shepherds, the king asked, "Can anyone take care of mine?" I think from there that's how it spread. Them taking care of people's um livestock. And remember the Egyptians saw shepherds and all that as beneath them, unclean, dirty. They don't do such work. They don't relate with such. Let's put it that way. According to the ending of the previous chapter, it said Egyptians will have nothing to do with shepherds. So these people were shepherds were beneath them, dirty, classless, and all that. And now the children of Jacob, his descendants are shepherds. So yeah, this is how I believe the slavery began. Moving on. So now the famine was so severe that there was no food anywhere. People of Egypt and Canaan became weak with hunger, As they bought grain, Joseph collected all the money and took it to the palace. In the end, there was no money left anywhere. And they shouted in 14, 15, give us food, don't let us die, do something, our money is all gone. And Joseph answered, bring your livestock, I will give you food in exchange for it if your money is all gone. And they did so. Then in 18, the following year, they came to him and said, we will not hide the fact from you, sir, that our money is gone and our livestock belongs to you. There is nothing left to give you except our bodies and our lands. Don't let us die. Don't let our fields be deserted. Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We will be the king's slaves and he will own our land, give us grain to keep us alive, and seed so that we can plant our fields. So Joseph bought all the land in Egypt for the king. Every Egyptian was forced to sell his land to the king for food. So Joseph made slaves of the people. Only the priests of the gods and goddesses of Egypt, did not sell their land. They received rations from the king. So Joseph made slaves of the people from one end of Egypt to the other. Like I said, the only land he did not buy was the one that belonged to the priests. They didn't have to sell their lands because the king gave them an allowance to live on. The king took care of them, because hey, they're priests and whatnot of the Egyptian gods. So Joseph says to the people, you see, I have now bought you and your lands for the king. Here is seed for you to sow in your fields. Which was smart, instead of the fields, the lands lying vacant. Plant, cultivate them. Then when you harvest, you must give one fifth to the king. You can use the rest for seed and for food for yourselves and for your families. Very wise. Well, no surprise there. God was with Joseph and Joseph was full of wisdom. So they answered, you have saved our lives, you have been good to us, sir, and we will be the king's slaves. So Joseph made it a law for the land of Egypt that one fifth of the harvest should belong to the king, and the law remains in force today. Well, I wonder if the Israelites in the land of Goshen, I'm sure Joseph took care of his family, so they didn't have to sell or do any of that. And I'm sure people were resentful or full of resentment in a way towards these people are foreigners. And this governor is a foreigner as well, and he's taking care of them, and we've sold everything that belongs to us for food. Meanwhile, he's giving them food, our food. I'm sure there must have been some resentment and whatnot that started all this. Resentment was the Israelites, aside from them being shepherds that the Egyptians felt were beneath them and classless. Now Joseph was taking care of them, giving them food. Meanwhile, they sold everything they had and have, and they're now slaves to the king. And Joseph's family was okay. So the Israelites lived in Egypt in the region of Goshen, where they became rich and had many children. See? Jacob lived in Egypt 17 years until he was 147 years old. Remember, he came to Egypt and he had this teary moment. Oh, I wept when Joseph hugged his dad in 46 and they cried in each other's arms. It was so painful and touching, and I could feel their joy. Anyway, so Jacob came to the land of Egypt when he was 130. Now he's 147. When the time drew near for him to die, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, place your hand between my thighs. Remember, I said in previous, what chapter was that? I can't remember the chapter, but this was when Abraham wanted his servants, the head of the servants, to go to Mesopotamia to his people to find a wife for Isaac. He made him do this same promise. Place your hand between my thighs and make a solemn vow. Because, like I explained in that chapter, then this was how vows, as in, it's like you laying your hand on a man's genitalia where his life force, his seed, comes from. So this is a very solemn vow. Once someone place your hand between my thighs, that's a serious vow. And he told Joseph in 30, I want to be buried where my fathers are. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried. Remember, he has land in Shechem, and Rachel, the love of his life, was buried there. You know. So Joseph answered, I will do as you say. Leah was also buried as well. Then Jacob said, make a vow that you will. Don't just say you will, vow. Then Joseph made the vow, and Jacob gave thanks there on his bed. Someone is what I've learned from this is someone saying yes or that they will do something is different from you making that person take a vow. But then these days people don't even keep to their words, even vows. It's so hard. Then like people will take marital vows on an altar before God and before the whole world. And they break it. So yeah, but in those days, vows were pretty serious. I believe it's same today and should be same, but unfortunately, people do not do so. But vows are very important, and then respect is important. The Joseph and his brothers respected the king by going to greet the king, giving honor where it is due. And as always, my name is Frances Okeke, and this is Frances Reads the Bible. God bless you and goodbye.